Yeah, I want to talk about money. I want to talk about somebody called John Money, a psychologist, a sexologist, research into sexual identity and biology of gender. And the controversy around his life was during his professional life, Money was respected as an expert on sexual behaviour, especially for allegedly demonstrating that gender was learned rather than innate. Many years later, however, it was revealed that his most famous case was the result of fraudulent reporting on the part of Money. The subject of Money's fraud was his involvement in the sex reassignment of David Reimer, in what later became known as the John Joan case. Money reported that he successfully reassigned Reimer as female after a botched 1966 infant circumcision. In 1997, Milton Diamond reported that the reassignment had failed, that Reimer had never identified as female or behaved typically feminine. At age 14, Reimer, who had fought against being forced to see Dr. Money since age 7, refused to see Money again, threatening suicide if he were made to go. Reimer's parents then decided to tell Reimer the truth about his past and biological sex. Reimer immediately ended the hormone treatments he'd been forced to undergo to stimulate female sex traits and began hormones to bring about the male puberty prevented by the removal of his testes by Dr. Money. He ceased using the name Brenda that his parents had chosen for him after he began treatment with Dr. Money and chose a new name, David, for himself. At 15, with a different medical team, he sought a mastectomy, testosterone therapy and a phalloplasty. Later, he married a woman who had children from a previous marriage and lived as a man until his suicide at age 38. Money continued to publish that his work with Reimer was a success, even 30 years later in various publications. In 2000, David and his twin brother made public the fact that Dr. Money had taken numerous naked photos of the twins during their treatment and forced them to engage in sexual play at age 7. In 2003, his brother was found dead from a drug overdose. This deeply disturbed David, who visited his brother's grave 4 to 5 days per week. In 2004, upon being told by his wife of her intention to separate, Reimer committed suicide. Reimer's parents have stated that they believe Dr. Money's treatment bears responsibility for the deaths of both their sons. Biography. No, we won't go into that. We'll go into sexological work. Sexual identity, and gender roles. Money's definition of gender is based on his understanding of sex differences among human beings. According to Money, the fact that one sex produces ova and the other sex produces sperm is the irreducible criterion of sex difference. However, there are other sex derivative differences that follow in the wake of this primary dichotomy. These differences involve the way urine is expelled from the human body and the other questions of sexual dimorphism. According to Money's theory, sex adjunctive differences are typified by the smaller size of females and their problems in moving around while nursing infants. This then makes it more likely that the males do the roaming and hunting. Sex arbitrary differences are those that are purely conventional, for example colour selection, baby blue for boys, pink for girls. Some of the latter differences apply to life activities such as career opportunities for men versus women. Finally, Money created the now common term gender role, which he differentiated from the concept of the more traditional terminology, sex role. According to Money, the genitalia and erotic sexual roles were now by his definition to be included under the more general term gender role, including all the non-genital and non-erotic activities that are defined by the conventions of society to apply to males or to females. Money made the concept of gender a broader, more inclusive concept than one of male-female. Now, gender includes not only one's status as a man or a woman, but as a matter of personal recognition, social assignment or legal determination, not only on the basis of one's genitalia, but also on the basis of somatic and behavioural criteria that go beyond genital differences. Gender identity is one's own categorization of one's individuality as male, female, or ambivalent, as experienced in self-awareness of one's own mental processes and one's own actual behaviour. Gender role is the public manifestation of one's gender identity, the things that one says and that one does that gives people a basis for inferring whether one is male, female, or fits neither of those categories. To stress the idea that gender identity and gender role are two aspects of the same thing, Money coined a new term, gender identity role, which he frequently abbreviated as GIR. Money also coined the term love map. In 1972, Money presented his theories in Man and Woman, Boy and Girl, a college-level mainstream textbook. The book featured David Reimer as a case in point. David Reimer. This is about David Reimer. Money's ideas relating to gender and gender identity formation have come under intense criticism in the scientific community. Money argued that a child's gender identity is fluid up to a certain age, after which this gender would become consolidated and more or less immutable. This theory was applied in the case of a male child, David Reimer, whose penis was destroyed due to a botched circumcision. This came to be known as the John Joan case. The child was subsequently sexually reassigned as female. However, even though David Reimer was raised as a girl and never knew his early history, he behaved in a masculine way appropriate to a boy while he was a young child. Later attempts to socialize him as a girl failed. In 1997, Milton Diamond and Keith Sigmundson authored a follow-up of the Reimer case, suggesting that future cases be managed in light of what occurred. As for Reimer, when he finally reached the age to make his own medical decisions, he was so distressed by Money's demand for further surgery to complete his female genitals that his parents decided to reveal his medical history to him. He immediately retransitioned to a male gender role and later underwent genital reassignment surgery again in order to complete his male gender identity with male genitalia. He underwent 4 rounds of reconstructive surgery to facilitate the reappropriation of the male sex. Towards the end of his life, he lost his job, was separated from his wife, failed a financial investment, and mourned the death of his twin brother Brian, who died in an accidental drug overdose. He committed suicide on May 5, 2004. John Colapinto, who publicised Reimer's story in a Rolling Stone article on the book As Nature Made Him, speculated that Reimer never psychologically recovered from his childhood trauma. David's mutilation and his parents' guilt were tightly entwined, multiplying the mental anguish to which the family members were already prone. David's blighted childhood was never far from his mind. Just before he died, he talked to his wife about his sexual inadequacy, his inability to be a true husband. Reimer said Money sexually abused him and his brother during superfluous photo shoots. This added stress was harmful to Reimer and instilled in him a fear of Money and his medical expertise. A 2020 interview contains this primary source. Money claimed that media response to the expose was due to right-wing media bias and the anti-feminist movement. He claimed his detractors believed masculinity and femininity are built into the genes, so women should get back to the mattress and the kitchen. However, intersex activists also criticised Money, stating that the unreported failure had led to the surgical reassignment of thousands of infants as a matter of policy. Privately, Money was mortified by the case, colleagues said, and as a rule did not discuss it. Money's own views also developed and changed over the years. Johns Hopkins University maintains a sexual behaviourist consultation unit. The psychiatry department, however, has concluded that gender identity is primarily innate and the university no longer performs sex change operations for adults with sexual dysphoria. On paedophilia, interesting. John Money was critical in the debate on paedophilia. He felt that both sexual researchers and the public do not make distinctions between affectional paedophilia and sadistic paedophilia, including infantophilia, occasionally referred to as nepiophilia. Paedophilia and ephebophilia. For Money, affectional paedophilia is about love and not sex. If I were to see the case of a boy aged 10 or 11 who's intensely erotically attracted towards a man in his 20s or 30s, if the relationship is totally mutual and the bonding is genuinely totally mutual, then I would not call it pathological in any way. His view was that affectional paedophilia is caused by a surplus of parental love that became erotic and is not a behavioural disorder. Rather, he felt that heterosexuality is another example of societal and therefore a superficial ideological concept. Interesting, people, isn't it? And I'd have all sorts of views on that, what I've just read. I mean, people back then in those days were coming up with all of these sorts of words, gender role. I just really think the whole thing is society has shaped not just our bodies but our minds as well to believe in what the people in power believe, which in my opinion is complete, sorry, there's no other word for it, but bullshit. To be continuing this idea that you're either male or female. It's anyway. I just thought I'd throw out that to you anyway about John Money, and please discuss it. I'm going to discuss it myself. But that's just a reading. Ciao.